Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel today. It is week 12 of the 2023 Amigurumi Advent Calendar Crochet Along, and this week we're going to be making these really cute flip-flop sandals for our dolls. This is a quick and easy project and it's accessible for beginners. I'll be showing you step by step how to make these sandals, and you're not going to need a whole lot of special equipment to make these sandals. So let's hop into the materials that you're going to need to follow along with today's tutorial. To follow along with today's tutorial, you'll need the following materials. You'll need a worsted weight yarn in your color of preference. Today I'm using We Crochet's Bravo worsted weight line in the color Cornflower. You'll need a 3.5mm or E crochet hook, or whatever sized hook that you've been using for all the crochet along patterns to date to match the gauge given in the pattern. You'll need a pair of scissors, 5 or 6 stitch markers. Now these are more of a support. You don't really super need these. They're handy to have though. So if you do have this amount of stitch markers, I do recommend having them. And a tapestry needle. So let me clear off my workspace here and we're going to dive in making our crochet sandals for our dolls. To start making our doll sandals, we're going to need to create a slip knot to place on our crochet hook. So we're going to grab the tail end of our yarn and wrap it around our fingers, from around to the back and back to the front, cross it over itself, and then we're going to flip our hand over like this. So we have 2 strands across the top of our fingers, and we're going to pin the working yarn down with our ring finger. Picking up our crochet hook, we're going to insert that hook under the first strand and over the second. And then we're going to use our hook to drag the second strand under the first strand, and then we're going to transfer everything off of our hook, or off of our fingers and onto our hook. Then grabbing onto the working yarn, we're going to pull that yarn so that way the slip knot is tight up here against our hook. And we're ready to start with the actual crocheting. To start our sandal, we're going to need to create a chain of 7. To create a chain of 7, we're going to yarn over hook and pull through the loop on our hook to create 1 chain. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook, and that's 2. We're going to continue to do this yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook until we have 7. And there I have my 7 chains, and if you turn your piece so you have these little V's facing you, you can count how many chains you have by counting from your slip knot left to right. You're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, your slip knot will be on the opposite side. All right. So we're ready to start with round 1 of our sandal, and we're going to start by placing a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So again, you should have your piece facing you like this. You can see those nice little V's facing you. And when you're counting to your second chain from the hook, we never count the yarn on our hook as a stitch or a chain. Then we're going to count this first V here as our first stitch, our first chain, and then this little V here is our second. So we're going to take our hook and we're going to insert it in through the middle of that V. Then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop through the V. So then we should have 2 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops on your hook, and that completes your first single crochet stitch. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 chains. So we're going to insert into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. Then we're going to insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through both loops, and that's our 3rd single crochet completed. So working into the next chain, we're going to single crochet again, and then into the next chain, 1 last single crochet. All right, so your piece should look like this so far. Let me grab that here, and you should have 5 single crochets, and you can count those single crochets by counting those little V's along the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now you can see that we have 1 last chain here with the one with the slip knot in it that needs to be worked. In this last chain, we're going to work 3 single crochets all into the same chain. So going into that first chain, we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and that's our first single crochet. Then we're going to work 2 more single crochets into that same chain. So going back into that same chain, we're going to single crochet once, and then back into that same chain, we're going to single crochet a second time. So now we have 3 single crochets in that piece. And when we place 3 single crochets in that last chain, what it kind of does is it creates almost like a corner or a turning point for us. So that way we can start working on the other side of our chain. So when we're working on the other side of the chain, we don't start in this last chain that we just worked. We're going to start in the second chain, all right? Because they consider this having already been worked into. So we skip that chain we just worked in and we're starting in the second. And you can see here that we have these little loops. Let me stretch one out so you can see it a little easier. We have these little loops along the bottoms of the stitches we created in the first part of our row here. And we're going to be working into those chains along this side of the piece. So we're going to place 1 single crochet into each of the first 4 chains. So into that first chain, we're going to single crochet. Into the next chain, another single crochet. So that's 2. And we have 2 more to do. Into the next chain, our third, and into this next chain, our 4th single crochet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this loop up so we can remove the hook and you can take a look at what we've got so far. So this is what our piece should look like right now. And you can see we've got this last loop hanging out here and we have to work into that last loop. So I'm going to put the yarn back on my hook. And then in this last loop, we're going to work 2 single crochets in the last chain. So we're going to insert into that chain and single crochet, and then back into the same chain. We're going to single crochet again. All right. So at the end of this round, you should have 14 single crochets. And again, you can count those by counting the V's along the top of both sides of your piece. And we're ready to move on to round 2. Now, this piece is worked in continuous spirals for the base of the sandal. So you're going to need to bring in a stitch marker so that way we can mark the first stitch of our round while we're working. So we always know where our first stitch is. So now we're ready to move on to row 2. And in round 2, we're going to place what's called a single crochet increase into this first stitch here. Now, when we do a single crochet increase, that means that we're going to place 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So we'll do that now. Working into that first stitch, we're inserting our hook and picking up both loops of that stitch, and we're going to single crochet. Now that we have our first single crochet completed, I'm going to pick up my stitch marker and place that into the top of my stitch. And that is our first stitch, and I want to continue to move this marker up to mark the first stitch of every row. Now we're going to go back into that same stitch we just worked into and place a second single crochet in order to finish our single crochet increase. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And there's 2. Three. And 4. So now we are at the end of our piece again, and we're going to start working into those 3 single crochets that we worked into the last chain of the previous row. So in this stitch, in these next 3 stitches, we're going to place a single crochet increase into each of these 3 stitches. So working into that first stitch, we're going to place 2 single crochets. So there's our first, back into that same stitch, and there's our second. Now working into that next stitch, we're going to again do another single crochet decrease or increase, sorry. So again, 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. And then into the next stitch, we're going to once again do another single crochet increase, which is again those 2 single crochets worked into the same piece or same stitch. So you can see now that we've worked around our piece, and those single crochet increases have turned our piece, and we're now on the other side of our piece. We're kind of creating an oval now to act as our base of our sandal. So now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So into that first stitch, single crochet, into the next, single crochet, into the next, 1 single crochet, and into the next, our last and 4th single crochet. And now we have 2 stitches left in this row to be worked, and in each of those stitches we'll do a single crochet increase. And again, that is 2 single crochet stitches worked into the same stitch. So there's our first. Goodness. And our second, and into the next stitch, our first, and then our second. At the end of round 2, you should have 20 single crochets around your piece. Now moving into round 3, I'm going to move my stitch marker out of the way and start working into this first stitch. And we're going to work 1 single crochet into that stitch. Then I'm going to pick up that stitch marker and place my stitch marker into that stitch. And I'm ready to move on. In this next stitch here, we're going to work a single crochet increase, which is again those 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. So there's our first and our second. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So here is our first, second, third, and 4th. And now we are going to do a single crochet increase into this next stitch. Again, those 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. And we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next stitch. We'll do a single crochet increase into the next stitch. Again, that's 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. And 1 single crochet into this next. Now we'll do a single crochet increase into this next stitch. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we'll do a single crochet increase into this next stitch. And again, that's 2 single crochets done into the same stitch. 1 single crochet into the next stitch. And a single crochet increase or 2 single crochets in the same stitch here in this next stitch. And 1 single crochet in this last stitch here. At the end of this round, you should have 26 single crochet stitches around your piece. Now we are ready to move on to round 4. I'm going to move the stitch marker out of the way, and we're going to start round 4 by working 1 single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. So working that first single crochet here, I'm going to pick up my stitch marker and place it back into that stitch. Then I'm going to work my second single crochet into this next stitch here. Now we're going to do a single crochet increase into the next stitch, and again that's 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. Now we will place 1 single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we're going to work a single crochet increase or 2 single crochets in the same stitch into this next stitch here. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So here's 1 and 2. Then we're going to work a single crochet increase into the next stitch. And we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. In this next stitch here, we're going to work a single crochet increase or 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So now that we have this increase, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of these next 6 stitches. There's 1, 3, 5, and 6. Now we're going to work a single crochet increase or 2 single crochets into the same stitch. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And in this last stitch here, we're going to work a single crochet increase or once again 2 single crochets into that same stitch. So there's 1 and 2. So at the end of round 24, you should have 32 stitches. So before we move on, we're going to need to place some stitch markers in this round to help us in the placement of our strap. So I'm going to bring in my stitch markers here. And again, if you don't want to use them, you don't have to. I just personally find them a little bit of an assistance in this next part so I know which stitches I'm working into next. So we want to place a stitch marker in stitch 7 of this round. So I'm going to count over from my stitch marker. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I'm going to place a stitch marker in stitch 7. Then I need to place a stitch marker in stitch 8, which is the stitch directly next to the stitch I just placed a stitch marker in. Okay. Then we're going to need to place a stitch marker in stitch 24. So if this is 8, we're going to go 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Then we're going to place a stitch marker in that stitch, 24. Then we want to place one in stitch 25, which is directly next to that, and 26. All right, so this is what your piece should look like. It looks a little crazy right now, I know, but I promise it will makes sense when we get into it, because now we're going to start making our strap, and I've designed this in a way so that way we don't have to do any additional sewing. The strap and the sandal are all worked together as one piece. So let's get into it. So we are going to move this first stitch marker, which is still marking the first stitch of our round, out of the way, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet into that first stitch. I'm going to move that stitch marker up, and then I'm going to place 1 single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now that we've got our 5th single crochet, we're going to create a chain of 9. And so this chain is going to reach from one side of our sandal over to the other to start our strap. So we're going to yarn over hook and pull through the loop on our hook to create 1 chain. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through again until we have 9 chains. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9. So now that we have our chain of 9, we're going to work 1 single crochet into this 26th stitch. So I'm going to move this orange stitch marker out of the way. And this is why I use different colors, so that way I can help keep track of which stitch is which. So working into that first stitch, I'm going to single crochet. And I won't need that stitch marker anymore, so that orange stitch marker can just go off to the side. Then I'm going to work 1 single crochet into the 25th stitch, so where I placed that red stitch marker. All right, and now we have just finished row 5, which is the beginning of our strap for our sandals. And let's just move this hook out of the way so you can see where we're at, and you can see how it is starting to take form. All right, so now we're ready to start the, pulled that out here. Let me redo that. So now we're ready to move on to row 6, which is our second strap of our sandals. So we're going to turn our work. We're not going to chain 1. And we're going to place 9 single crochets across our strap here. So we're working into this chain. We're skipping the single crochets we just did, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of these 9 chains. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we've done our 9 single crochets across our chain. Right, so this is what our piece looks like at this point. And then we're going to place 1 single crochet into the 7th and 8th stitches of this round, which is where we have our other stitch markers. So moving that first stitch marker out of the way, I'm going to single crochet into that stitch. All right, so then I'm going to move the next stitch marker out of the way, and I'm going to single crochet into that same stitch where the stitch marker was, okay? So now we should, if you're counting the 9 stitches and the 2 stitches we just did, we should have 11 stitches. So now we're ready to do the last row of our sandals. And to do that, we're going to skip the last 2 stitches that we did, and we're going to place 1 single crochet into each of these stitches we did across the chain. Right, so you don't chain 1, you just turn your work and start placing 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So now that we've done our single crochets along our strap here, we're on the other side of the sandal where our last marked stitch is. We're going to finish this off by working a slip stitch into this last marked stitch, which is stitch 24. So we're going to insert our hook into that marked stitch there, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to pull that loop all the way through the loop on your hook, and that's your slip stitch completed. Now at this point, we're going to finish off our yarn, and we'll use our scissors to cut a yarn tail of 4 to 6 inches. Now you'll see that mine's already cut because we had a little bit of a technical issue, and I cut the yarn, but I had to redo it. So I've already cut my tail. Let's imagine that I'm using scissors and that's all cut. And then I'm just going to pull my yarn tail through all the way through my last stitch and then pull on the yarn tail to tighten. And so you can see this is our little sandal. It's super cute and fun, and they're so quick to whip up. You can make them in all the colors to match all the outfits that you've made if you'd like. So you'll need to rewind the video to make a second one, and then use your yarn tail to weave in your ends. So because the yarn tail for your strap is on the top of your piece, I recommend taking your yarn tail and going in through that last stitch here and bringing your yarn tail back to the bottom of your piece, so that way you can weave it in on the bottom, since the bottom will mostly be on the ground, I'm suspecting, during playtime, and so that the top that is showing, you won't see your ends. All right. And just before we go, I do want to talk about the fit of the sandals, and I've got my doll here. When you're putting your sandals on right after you've made them, they should be snug. And the reason that they're going to be so snug, especially your first time putting them on, is because I've designed them to be snug so that way they don't immediately fall off the feet of the doll during playtime, right? Because my daughter gets super frustrated when her little doll's shoes fall off. So I decided to make these a little snug so that way as the yarn relaxes over time, they might not just start immediately falling off. They've got a little bit more longevity to them. So they will be a little snug when you start putting them on, but over time it will relax and be easier to put on. So rewind the video, make your second sandal. And if you enjoyed this video, please give this video a thumbs up and please consider subscribing to the channel. If you enjoy free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com, where we have hundreds of free crochet patterns and tutorials that are published weekly. And that's it for me today. If you have any comments or questions, I would also love to hear from you, and I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. Leave them in the comments section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.